I'm Bob Cox, the author of the Opening Doors series and consultant, teacher, and enthusiast for English for sure. And we're trying to help you with lots of great ideas for writing, which are stimulated by fantastic stories, sometimes famous stories. So learn a little bit about the text and how interesting it is and how much there is that's new and exciting, and then apply that to your own creative writing. That's the journey, and hope you really enjoy it. And today's focus, because you may know we've got lots of videos already made in this series, and this one is all about To Build a Fire by Jack London, the author of famous stories like White Fang and Call of the Wild. But actually this one is often regarded as perhaps the story that's best written of all, and it's a short story, so it's really action-packed, condensed, and very, very focused, which is one reason why I chose it. In the background you can see the 5 books in the Opening Doors series. This one is from the Opening Doors to a Richer Curriculum 10 to 13 books, so there's a lot more in that book for teachers and parents watching this. There's a quote that I'll be using in this session. The man was shocked. It was as though he had just heard his own sentence of death. So what's happening? And why do I think it's so exciting? Like most of Jack London's stories, they're set in Alaska, and the environment is very, very cold. Jack London lived in San Francisco. We travelled to this area, the Yukon, in the 1890s when gold was discovered. And Jack was very, very poor. He was struggling with all sorts of lowly paid jobs. And like many people, he was attracted to the idea of a fortune found in this territory, found by becoming a gold prospector. He found he had done some writing beforehand, and his experiences in the Yukon actually enabled him to perhaps, if you like, become a professional writer for the first time, but only afterwards. It was very, very tough conditions, and like many of the men there, it was much, much harder than perhaps he'd been told. But this story, To Build a Fire, like all the others, exploits the freezing cold environment. Look at that, 50 degrees below zero, and that's what I called the unit in the book. He exploited those conditions to write really original stories about the dangers, the excitements, the way the dogs became closer than ever to man's best friend. That picture there is by my daughter, Vicky Cox. I always give her a mention. She's my regular illustrator right through the book series. And what I'm going to help you with is what I've written there. How does a writer guide a reader's response to the plot? Because we like to take a concept or a topic in all our advice to children writing, and whether that advice is coming through teachers, parents, or even to the children themselves, we do like to say, well, what can you learn that's new so that you can become a better writer? So let's learn a little bit from a great writer and then apply it. And in particular, I'm interested in how Jack builds up how we feel line by line, word by word. This is just one sentence, but you know, I think that's enough to get us going in what really is a brief video guide here, so that you can carry on and write a lot more. But we'll we'll give you chances to pause, as I will in a minute, and work through this as you wish. Look at this sentence. The situation is, by the way, that somebody quite new to Alaska and quite naive, not really understanding the dangers of the environment, finds himself with his dog fairly kind of confident of where he's going, but realizing that he will of course have to build a fire. And what Jack London builds through the story is the fact that if you build a fire, you're going to live. If you can't build a fire, you're going to die. And this is the beginning of Jack raising some warning signs in the reader's mind. But all this, the mysterious, far-reaching hairline trail, the absence of sun from the sky, the tremendous cold, and the strangeness and weirdness of it all, made no impression on the man. So, as we read this through, there's a great motion, isn't there, to that one sentence. I think something we can learn from. It's got a kind of poetic rhythm to it, the mysterious, far-reaching hairline trail. The adjectives build and hairline. Think of that image in your mind as you're reading that, a hair. It's thin, you can just about see where you're going. I was interested in that hairline hyphenated word in particular. What about the use of those dashes? Just marking off that rhythmic build, and in the rhythm comes the danger. It's a long trail. It's mysterious. Jack's telling us he doesn't really know what he's doing. The cold is tremendous, and the strangeness and weirdness of it all. They all link together. That's why I put them in blue. The dashes in brown linking together. The building of the words that are flagging danger all together. A little technique you might like using is mark, note, explain, and you could actually use this for any text. We're going to give you the link to the whole story later, and you can take any part of the story, mark what seems interesting, mark what's curious. We love building curiosity with learners, and we think that that's why the writer Jack London has written in this very, very successful way. We can do it mentally, but you could do it as an exercise too. And then why not note the most important thing to you, or maybe the word that you love the most? I think for me it would be hairline. And try to explain, if you're a teacher to a class or a parent to a child, try then to explain what it might be about those adjectives or those particular images that build that rhythm. Mark, note, explain. You could apply that, go and apply that to any text you like. Go away in your own learning and your own fun, and try to have a way like that of actually moving the explanation on. Now, let's have a look at a taster draft. What I mean by a taster draft is you can take inspiration like that from Jack London, and straight away, it's just one focused sentence I've used there, that's enough. Go and enjoy yourselves, perhaps limit it to 100 words. It is a taster, that just a bite. Can you write a paragraph capturing the following in any freezing cold setting? You could keep it to a human figure, or you could expand it and include a creature with a human. But how about keeping to the cold setting? Apply what you've learned. Why not pause this video now, go and enjoy yourselves, and make it the kind of writing that, just like Jack's, has the reader in mind with every word that's chosen. Good luck. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and hope you're able to read that through. Ask yourselves, what do you like? Where could you go from here? Teachers can move in now and give further advice. Where do you go next? And I think you're ready to hear a bit more. So this is a bit longer. High up in the tree, one bough capsized its load of snow. This fell on the boughs beneath, capsizing them. This process continued, spreading out and involving the whole tree. It grew like an avalanche, and it descended without warning upon the man and the fire was blotted out. Where it had burned was a mantle of fresh and disordered snow. The man was shocked. It was as though he had just heard his own sentence of death. My goodness me, look at the action there, and look at all that linking, sentence by sentence. This fell on the boughs, this process continued, it grew like an avalanche. And that shorter sentence, the man was shocked. There's so much more to learn, and each word means something to us. What does avalanche mean to us? And what image does that give? And where do we normally hear of that word? What does it mean, and why is it repeated? Capsizing its load of snow. Now, for me, this is just personal, but this is like the same sort of mark and note. This is my marking to model it. But I linked it with a boat, capsizing boat. But here it's snow. It's coming down, but it's having the same effect. It's sinking. Is it sinking him? Is it sinking his chances of survival? And of course, it's extinguishing the fire. It grew like an avalanche. The fire was blotted out. What kind of symbol is a fire? In other words, what does fire represent in our minds and our imagination? And how has Jack London used this in his writing? What kinds of symbols can you use in your writing when you write again in a minute? How can you make it coherent like Jack? How can you make it link and build sentence by sentence? These are quick things we can learn from a great writer, then we can apply them. I'm chilled by that last sentence. Our personal response matters, doesn't it? What we feel about the writing. And I want to know what's going to happen next. It's a stunning last sentence. To build a fire. Will he do it or not? It's gone out. Can he build it again? All the time he's getting colder. And what about the dog? Do you want to pause and do another taster draft? Write this dramatic incident in the first person from the man's point of view. I just thought that would be an interesting thing to do. This is written in the third person, but if you go back to that passage, try to rewrite it, but starting with I. And I think you'll find that gives you practice in thinking a bit more about how the man feels when each incident occurs there. Great writing practice, seeing things from different perspectives, especially if you want to learn more about how a writer considers the response of a reader. I'm sure you're going to want to read the whole story. There it is, online, the 1908 version. There is a 1902 version, a bit harder to find, which was written for a younger readership, which may interest you as well. But just keep to this one for now, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the whole story. Teachers, you might want to read the story to your pupils. It's a very dramatic. Every sentence moves the story on. Well, I hope you've enjoyed all of that, and I'm sure you're going to want to write more. Why not choose one of these titles? I won't read them all through, but I'd love to hear from somebody thinking about a very, very cold environment in 100 years' time? That just fascinates me, and I've not seen anyone write about that one yet. So that's just my favourite, but it's up to you. Go for it. Develop your drafts and reflections, edit it into a final tale. There's a lot there to do. Away you go, pause the video, or just move to an end. There's only a little bit more to do, and get that writing done. And above all, let the pen flow, because I think studying a little bit of Jack London has given you the tools you need. Do share your work with us. I can consider it for the Crown House site that you can see there, but you might be interested to look at the site anyhow. There's lots and lots of children's writing on it. Ask an adult to email me with your work. If you're a parent, schools may wish to obviously email me anyhow. We've got lots of other online modules. Please take a look at my website, and please take a look across the books. There are 80 units of work, lots of ideas from writers across the globe in 5 books. Enjoy.